How are you doing?
Hi, thank you so much for having me on here. I'm excited to chat with you more.
I'm excited as well. Thank you so much for coming and welcome to Journey Teachers.
Thank you. I'm so excited. And how are you doing?
I'm doing very well. So let's begin with a brief introduction about you. Kindly tell something about yourself to the people watching.
Yeah, so my name is Rachel and I am a sales trainer. And so I've worked in professional sales and coaching combined for the last 12 years, mostly within the fine jewelry industry, and where I worked my way up to store management, oversaw a team of 8 to 16 that I personally hired, trained, and coached how to sell and retain clients so that we could meet and exceed sales goals and also retain, right? And I also taught onboarding at a corporate level to other leaders within the company, mentored managers one on one, how to run their stores. And so in 2020, I left and started my own business so that I could teach other businesses how to improve their client retention.
That is quite a wholesome journey, and I tell you, you're doing such a great job.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Okay, so let's begin with the very first question. What are some of the short ways to generate sales for a particular brand, offer, or even a service? Want to hear from the sales trainer herself?
Yeah. So I think the really important thing to remember about sales is it often gets confused with marketing. And so let's define that for a second so that we understand like how to actually generate sales. So marketing is really what gets people in the door, right? So it's how you get visible, how you get seen. Think of like your virtual door if you're online, right? Is like your social media profiles, your followers, your DMs, things like that. Like what gets people interested in you. And that's typically what we call like lead generation, right? That traffic flow. And there's other ways as well, like email marketing, right? Social media marketing, all that. Sales then is what you do once you have those leads and how you conversate with them and communicate with them in order to close the sale, right? And then delivering on a client experience so that they want to continue coming back with you. And so when we think of sales that way, then it's like, okay, well, how can we start talking then, right? So one of the most important tips, I know it sounds so easy, is literally just get talking to people. Oftentimes we wait for people to come to us and initiate the conversation, but they're actually waiting to hear from you, believe it or not. So some ways that you can do that is start by, if you're on social media, send them a DM, send them a direct message and say, hey, my name is, and start introducing yourself and having a conversation. Um, People tend to buy when they trust you. And so the goal is to build trust, right? And one of the best ways to do that is just getting to know people and focusing on building an actual relationship. And so when you do reach out, I don't encourage you to pitch immediately at all, right? Just get to know the people, let go of the expectations, and ask questions. It's also another hot tip that you can do. A sure shot way to generate a sale, right? Is to ask questions, get to know them, be curious, get to know their business, what they're about. And then I would say also take note of what they're telling you, because if you take note and you refer to it often, it's an excellent way to kind of bring that conversation full circle again and say, hey, I remember when you told me this, I do offer that. I think it would be an excellent opportunity for you. And it also really helps later on when we're talking about client retention and bringing clients back.
That is quite interesting that building trust really works, and building kind of relationships with the people who are talking about it really helps them to trust you, and then it can accordingly lead to the sales you want, definitely. And also, one point, as you said, that if you are
Mhm.
taking notes about people, and if you certainly remember some points they told you about themselves, so it really will surprise them as well, like you are getting to knowing them so much better. So this really matters.
Right. It's just like any other relationship you have, right?
Right.
With a friend or a family member, right? You're going to take the time to get to know them and you're going to remember important details about them, like things that they love and their birthday. So those are things that you can discover by asking questions and getting to know them and kind of letting go of the outcome. And oftentimes when we pitch, we're not focused on getting to know those things, right? And so it can really go a long way when we find out those details, right? It makes it more personalized too. And in this day and age, like personalization is everything. People want to feel seen and heard and connected.
So right, this is absolutely correct. Ask questions, initiate the conversation yourself, and Do not wait for anybody, just do it.
Right. And I know, like, I'm not an expert on this like terminology by any means, but I know it comes up a lot is this masculine and feminine energy. So I'm not going to go too into that. But I think that you have to have a combination of both. I think that you have to take the initiative from a masculine side, but you also have to be nurturing from the feminine side. So that's about all I'll say about that. But, you know, there is a, by initiating a conversation, it doesn't mean you're being aggressive, but literally as simple, like I said, is saying, hello, I'm Rachel. It's such a pleasure to meet you. Like, you know, thank you for following along. Thank you for coming in, depending on if you're in person, of course, or online. But, you know, don't overcomplicate it. Keep it really simple and just say hi.
Yeah, keep it simple. Just say hi or hello. Just ask
Mhm.
them how are they feeling, how are they doing. Ask something about their journey, their business. So that's all. That's really simple.
Right, right. I mean, I think that we all feel like this perfectionism of like we have to say the right thing, we have to know the right scripts, we don't want to say the wrong thing, and so we end up not doing it, right? So it's really important, just keep it so simple, just be yourself. You know, people really want to buy from you and get to know you and feel connected to you. And so just say hello, just start at hello and see where the conversation goes.
Absolutely. Okay. So the next question for you is how to lead the conversation with the leads without being salesy and similarly form some great connections without expecting them to buy from you. What to do with the leads once they're actually generated.
Right. Right. So I think that in this like effort to say the right thing, we end up feeling salesy, right? Because we end up being very focused on the intention. And so I think you have to get really clear on like why you're reaching out. Oftentimes when we are salesy, it could be because we really need the sale, right? We need to make money. And so we're really focused on like how can I just find that next client? How can I close them, right? That we aren't typically as focused on building a relationship. And as we know, building a relationship takes time. It's not something that happens overnight, just like any friendship, right? It develops over time, but the long term effects of it are worth it, right? So I think understanding that, like, where your mind is at and why you're talking to people is really important. But I also think that sometimes we get really excited when people reach out and they're like, hey, how do I work with you? I want to know more. And we do what we call, or what I call, word vomiting. So I know it's not a beautiful image, but the reason I say that is that we end up saying everything that's on our mind, everything comes out, right? And so it's not often like that ends up being very salesy because we end up talking a lot about our business and what we do and how we can help them. And it ends up making the conversation more about us versus them. And when it comes to sales, it's all about serving your community and doing what you can to help them. And so when we're not focused on them and getting to know them, then we're not accomplishing that, right? Because we're talking about ourselves. So one thing you can do to kind of avoid being salesy, like I said before, is to start asking questions about them. So if someone reaches out and they're like, hey, how do I work with you? I love to respond back and say, you know, absolutely, like, what makes you interested in learning more? Right? Like respond back with a question because it encourages you to pause. It makes the conversation about them. And then you're finding out what information they specifically want to know. Because when we word vomit, we overwhelm and we lose people, right? And so, um, you know, and you have to remember, like, if you feel salesy, you probably are, and your intentions are not in the right place because you're really focused on the money, like I said. Whereas, obviously, we all need to make money, we're in business, but, you know, focus on like getting to know the people that are there too.
Right. Focus on knowing the people and building relationships with them. And you just be yourself and, lead the conversation in that kind of
Mhm.
path. And you will not yourself feel salesy and you will build certain kind of trust with them. So, yeah.
Right, right. So, and I think another thing too, like never ever assume. Like even if you think you know the answer, never assume what someone's going through, never assume what they're doing behind the scenes, right? You know, so often I get these messages and you know, this is like a cold message and they're like, hey, like, are you interested in a copywriter? I would love to work with you. I just said copywriter, like anyone, right? But they don't know if I'm already working with someone. They don't know if I know that and doing it behind the scenes. Like, they make it about them, right? And their intention feels very clear when they reach out. And I give them so much credit for people reaching out, because it's not easy to send those messages. But if you really want to stand out, you have to build relationships with their community, and you have to get to know them, and you have to find out more about them. Because seriously, for you, even personally, I would love to hear your thoughts. Like, how often does someone reach out to you and they're like, hey, how are you? Like, how's it going? Like, it probably stands out to you when someone actually takes the time to ask about you versus just pitching and making it all about business, right?
It actually feels so good as well that someone is
Yeah.
reaching by themselves to us.
Right. Because you're like, wow, someone sees me and someone actually like cares. And you're going to take a little bit more interest and notice in them as a person. And you're going to want to know more naturally. Right. And it's not to say like you're manipulating or deceiving, right? Because if you're in business, you have to like people, you have to be interested in those that come in. Right. And that's a great way to start building that relationship and that connection and finding those common interests with people, is just by talking with them and not making it about business. Right.
Definitely. And even if you do not get particular sales, you will actually build connections, your networking skills will improve, and you will have a great community with you.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And, sales really is about communication, right?
Yeah.
I know we were talking about that, and learning your persuasion and negotiation skills, right? So it's a skill that will help you in so many other areas of your life, like you just said. It's not just for closing the deal, but how you talk to people in general. Like, I keep saying friends and family, but it's so true.
Definitely. Okay. People are generally so confused when it comes to the selling part of one's business to generate enough income and provide value. They often face the fear of who will actually buy from them. So, how would you like to address the same in terms of money mindset and the particular intention behind it as well?
Right. Okay. So that's a lot to unpack there. So I'm going to do my best. So if I miss something, like, please bring it back up again. I think that when we're in business, we just get so excited about what we do, and we're like, everyone could benefit from this. Right. And a lot of people talk about like niching down, right, and knowing who you're serving, but you don't always know at first, right? So you just get so excited, you want to help everyone. And so I really think through trial and error, you get really clear on what you're doing. And I don't know about you, but I often find that the people that are our best audience are typically who we used to be, right, before we went through that transformation. And so if you're not sure to help, like, reflect on that a little bit and think, okay, well, who was I, and what position was I in, and what role was I playing, and why did I need that help, and why did this interest me so much? Market research is a very valuable thing. I mean, this goes more into lead gen, right, versus sales. But taking the time to really read what people have to say about certain books, maybe within your industry, looking at courses that have already been done, looking at top accounts and seeing what they're posting about and what comments are being said. But that gives you an idea of how people feel about things and the words to use. And sales, again, is about knowing and mirroring back what you're hearing. And so when you kind of understand those words, you know how to start talking about it. And then through initiating your conversation and asking questions, you can then again mirror specifically back the words of the person that are talking to you. So you're piquing interest, right, through your market research. And then when you're talking, you're going to be more personalized to the person you're talking to. Does that make sense? I feel like that was kind of a lot, but hopefully it makes sense. And then I think oftentimes then when we are talking to people and we start talking about how we can work with them, we get really nervous about price, right? It feels scary to bring up this amount. And that's where it comes down to like your money mindset and how money shows up in your life and the relationship you have to it. And so I think sometimes we have to reflect on that. And there's typically two different types of mindsets, right? You have your scarcity mindset and you have your abundance mindset. So someone who is scarcity feels like money has an ending point, right? Like, I will never have enough. I need this. And they're very like focused on making money. And so that's typically, right, someone who tends to be salesy, that it pitches immediately, that is very business focused the whole time you're having a conversation. And they're typically not building a relationship with you as deeply, right? And I've been there, don't get me wrong. I think we've all felt that before, the pressure of needing to make money. But then you have this other side that sees money as an abundant thing, that it comes and goes, right? Like, you earn it, you lose it, and but it will always be there when you need it most. And so typically people that come from that mindset are really focused on getting to know people, understand that it takes time, will ask more questions, are very community driven, and are less pushy and aggressive in their approach, right? And not to say that one can't be the other. I think that they have a lot of overlap, right? And it's definitely a journey learning which side of that you are. But typically, then when we're talking about price, we get nervous because of how we feel about money and what that amount is to us because of our mindset, whether we're abundant or scarce, right? So I know a lot to think about there. I hope that all makes sense. But one thing I often saw in the fine jewelry world is that some people were really afraid to bring up $1,000, let's just say, to a customer, because to them $1,000 seems like a lot to spend on a piece of jewelry. But I will tell you that same customer in front of them were almost embarrassed that it only cost $1,000. So money is really relative to whoever is buying it. And so that comes back to like the assumption as well, is like never assume what someone else is feeling about money. And if you know that what you have is good and it's valuable, like you want to share that with people and let them decide what that value is to them in terms of price. Does that make sense?
Absolutely makes sense. People decide on their own what is the value of money for them, and everybody goes through the scarcity mindset as well. But it's very
Mhm.
important to understand and have those management skills accordingly and shift and transit to the abundance mindset that will actually make sense to your life as well, and it will help you to gather peace as well. So that's truly well said.
Right. And I think that sometimes we're like, I want to be abundant. How do I get there? But we often don't realize like how we view money, right? And the intention of reaching out actually plays out through our words and our tone. I like body language is a really big thing in sales, right? It's your eye contact, it's your tone of voice, it's your posture. And oftentimes when we're like really scarce on money, we say words that demonstrate that without us realizing. And then the same is said for abundance as well. And so that affects how we sell and how we communicate, which is why it feels salesy sometimes. So I think it's okay to reflect. It's okay to be like, okay, obviously I'm not perfect with money and it's a journey and it's a learning process, and to get really clear on why you feel that way and work on that. Or work with someone that can help you with that too.
Right. Your journey teaches you everything, and you should actually keep on learning these skills.
Right. Right. Absolutely. I think, oh gosh, if I could tell anyone anything, is just know like have building a business takes time, right? It doesn't happen overnight. And you're like, even though I've worked in sales for so long, like I am still learning to this day new things. And so I think being really open-minded and knowing that there's always going to be more to learn and things that you can do to improve is really important.
Right. There's a chance of improvement each and every day, and learning actually never stops.
It never stops. I mean, think about how much has changed over the last 2 years, even just like the way that we have to show up and meet people, right? And how fast technology is moving. I mean, there's just always something new to learn.
Definitely. Okay. So I want to hear from you any 5 tips on client retention or to increase the client retention.
Right. So I think, you know, okay, so let's take you through the journey a little bit. So you've generated a lead, they're interested, right? You're initiating conversation with them, you're getting to know them. So you're having non-business conversations, you're asking questions, you're taking notes, and then you go through like the sales call process, perhaps if you're online, or this process where you're kind of asking for the sale, right? And then you close the deal, they work with you or they purchase and then they leave, right? And so now it's like, okay, well, I don't have a client, I need to make sales. And so one of the best ways to have future sales is to retain your clients so that they want to come back to work with you. With that said, then that means that you need to make sure your product suite offers something for them to come back to work with you, right? And so if you're service based, really think about that a little bit. How can I get people to come back? A little easier with product based, right? Because we have inventory for that. But so a couple techniques that you could do is refer back to your notes. So I'm a huge believer on taking notes of your clients, right? So through the conversations you have, take notes of what they tell you that they love, what they desire, their birthdays. And so that's hot tip number 1. Take notes, put it into CRM program, or write it down somewhere. I personally love to do handwritten notes. To me, it's just easier because then in the moment I can write a quick note versus having to log into something and type it all up. But do what is right for you. There are so many different CRM programs. You can use literally Excel or Google Drive, like whatever works for you. Or again, you can buy like pages on Amazon and create like a binder and just have like client profiles. So number one is take notes. Number two, start working on building that relationship more, right? So refer to your notes, find out what's important to them. And if a birthday is coming up, reach out, go wish them happy birthday, send them a card in the mail, call them on the phone, but make it really personal and make sure that you're wishing them a happy birthday. It's really uncommon to hear that, and you never know like what someone's going through. Throughout the years, I've heard for many people that no one wished them happy birthday except for me from getting a card in the mail. So you never know like how that can positively influence someone. And it's also an amazing way to stand out, right? I mean, I have to ask you, like, when's the last time you received a birthday card in the mail?
I really loved your example, and there's so much too. Like in the online community, very less people actually remembers and wishes us birthday. So it's really great, and it's a really a very good way to actually stand out and build honest relations.
Right. Just like your friends and family, you're probably celebrating
Right.
their birthday with them, right? Why would we not treat our clients and leads and all of that the same, right? So
Absolutely.
oftentimes I get asked, okay, well, Rachel, like, how can I get birthdays then? Like, I haven't been collecting them. So there's many ways you can do that. You can do that through an intake form. So when you're onboarding a new client or you're checking them out, maybe you make that part of your process, you ask for it. And you don't have to ask for the year or anything, just simply a month and a day works. For me, when people opt into my newsletter, I ask for their birthday. That way I can send them a personal message on their birthday as well. Or just ask directly, just say, hey, when's your birthday? And then whenever I get that information, or maybe, they post it online, they're like, today's my birthday. And I'm like, oh, I got to remember that. I immediately put it on my calendar. Like I go to my phone, I go to my computer, and I just immediately put it on there so that I remember to wish them happy birthday, if not even the next year, right? So taking
Right.
notice, I know
Absolutely.
it might sound kind of like creepy, like, oh my gosh, she's doing that. But like, it feels so good to be seen. And your goal, like in order to retain clients, so that brings me to number three, is like make people feel really good, right? Make them feel so seen and so heard. And because people don't remember like exactly what you say, but they remember how you made them feel, right?
Absolutely. Providing them this wonderful kind of experience really
Mhm.
touches their heart as well. Like these kind of extra efforts reach them to their heart, and this way you are actually providing value, and you are showing genuine interest in people and building those kind of kind relationships with them, and long lasting as well.
Right. And think about that. If you had a choice between person A and person B, maybe you reach out to both of them. They're both very friendly at first, but person A kind of drops off when they realize you're not buying. But person B still sticks around and still checks in with you and still wishes you happy birthday. Like, who are you more likely to be interested in? Person A or person B?
Person B, for sure.
Right, because they've shown that they actually have your best interest in mind, that they've taken notice of you genuinely, and they're just they make you feel good, right? And so that's another missed up, that's a whole nother conversation, is like, just because someone tells you no, don't give up, right? So that, I mean, that could be a tip even as well, to keep in contact, right? So actually that's perfect, because tip number 4 is to follow up. And so often a lot of people think following up is just for like following up to say, hey, are you ready to buy yet? I sent you the proposal. Like, I'd love to hear, like, are you ready? But following up is really just keeping in touch with people. And so you can do that a variety of ways. Like, if you're product based and you're sending a product in the mail, follow up and see if the package arrived, right? And just, it's not even about like business. You're not asking for it, but you're just like, hey, I'm really curious. Like, did this arrive okay? Or maybe a new product came in, or a new service you're offering, and because you took notes and you learned about them, this is a great opportunity to reach out to them personally and say, hey, I just created this new thing. It made me really think of you for these reasons. I would love to have you there. You have to see this, right? It's an excellent way to also retain the clients that you already have, and show that you are listening to what they had to say. Like I said, following up can also look like birthdays, or maybe you just worked with a client and it's been a month since you've worked with them. Reach out to them and just see how they are since working with you, right? And keep in touch in that way.
Right, absolutely true. Just keep in touch with them. You have also made these terms like follow-ups quite simple to understand, that we have to genuinely reach out. And it's not kind of a pressure that we have to follow up, or we have to, kind of being focus on only the sales, but building relationships and genuine connections. That way, it's more simple for us as well.
Right, exactly. And, it takes a little bit of effort. Don't get me wrong. I mean, sales is never easy, but it doesn't have to be hard either. And the small things you do now will pay off later, because if you make people feel good and you make them feel seen, wouldn't you want to tell everyone you know, like, wow, like that was incredible. Like you have to go see this person too, because you feel so taken care of. Right.
Right. Absolutely.
So, and then my last hot tip I would say is, this is not a conversation I hear often because we talk a lot about onboarding, but we don't talk a lot about offboarding. So let's put this into perspective. So offboarding is how you set your client up for success after working with you, right? And so it's making sure that they have the information necessary in order to implement what they just did. So if you're product based, is there anything that they need to know in terms of like warranty or how to take care of things so that it stays in top condition? Or, like being that I was in fine jewelry, do they need to come in every few months and have things inspected or cleaned? And so really making sure that they understand what that looks like once they leave you. Right. Because often, or like, okay, let's back up. So if you're service based, right, is also making sure that the service you provided them, that they understand how to take over and the results of that and the effect of that after working with you. And so there's the experience that they have interacting with you can be absolutely amazing the whole time. They could be raving about you. But if they stop working with you and they're frustrated that something didn't go right or something wasn't explained, it can completely affect the client experience and their perception of you, which can then hurt you if they're, they'll tell others, like, I can't believe I hired this coach and now I don't know what to do. I feel like I didn't get what I needed. They didn't provide me this. Like, I didn't get the support. Like, there's so many things that could come out of that. And they're going to tell people and they're going to feel different about you, which influences whether or not they're going to come back to work with you. Right? Which is your sales, right?
Exactly.
And it happens, don't get me wrong. Yeah.
Exactly. Word of mouth in terms of referrals plays a very important role here.
It does. Yeah, exactly. And so, there's a couple ways that you can do that. You can, if you're in person, you can have that conversation with them and make sure that you give them any kind of writing or like in jewelry, right? We would give them maybe like a pouch that they could store their jewelry in. If we have warranty information, we made sure that they left with it. But, if you're service-based, maybe you're creating an offboarding packet of all the things that you did with them, the strategies that you use, their suggestions. You can do like an email sequence after with recommendations for podcasts and books and things like that. But really making sure that you're having that conversation with them, right? About what it's going to look like after you and how they can keep that momentum going is going to really increase their perception of you and more likely to want to come back to work with you again and refer you.
Right, absolutely. These were some really amazing tips, and we got a clear idea of how to, let the client to stay with you and trust you and give them that kind of good experience to work with you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and if anyone that is watching, if you need further help or have questions, like definitely make sure to, comment on this video or reach out to me. I'm sure you'll have all of that linked. So I'm happy to have conversations about that as well.
Right, absolutely. So you want to talk more about your business and your page?
Right. So currently I'm a sales trainer. So I do currently work with individuals and organizations, and I help them learn how to convert their leads into paying clients and of course retain them. I do a little bit mix of both, so of coaching and consulting. So for now I have a 12-week program where we go over coaching methods and we look at your business and we do a deep dive. We understand where you're at and areas maybe that we can improve upon and strengthen, and what we can start doing. I also work, like I said, with not individuals, with organizations and their teams, and we'll do training. So we'll look at where you're at and what we can improve upon. We'll come up with training methods, of course, and start implementing. So I'm huge on, strategy is really important, but you also have to know how to implement it and why. And you have to put it into practice what you're learning in order to really start building that skill so that it lasts you, right? It's not just lasting while we're working, but lasting beyond as well.
Right. I'm sure you definitely really help people to implement it and not just teaching them what they have to do,
Right.
but making sure that they implement as well. So I'll drop all the related links in the description below for you to check it out. And thank you so much for coming here. It was really wonderful to talk to you, and you shared some really amazing insights.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Thank you for having me. And like, I appreciate every single person who's listening and watching. And I look forward to meeting all of you. And thank you. I hope you learned something today.
Definitely. So, how did you like this interview? How did you like me as a host?
Oh, you are very well spoken and very professional and polished. And I can tell that you are an active listener, which is a very important skill to have. So, active listening is how we learn and how we
Right.
connect with others.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming. It was wonderful. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Oh, gosh, I had a fun time too. Thank you.